feel like someone like Felix, he's probably throughout his life, much of what he learns is like it's on the fly. It's just, learn it yourself, play over and over and over again, and just do it on your own. So I totally get it. I understand a lot of people are like that, but I am doing this in case he does watch the video or not. Why don't I just sub in for Felix? Yeah, but he won't watch this. You never know. He may or may not. But I'm doing it anyway. Because why not? After all he's done for the chess community, I figure it's the least I can do. And if he watches it, that's great. If he doesn't watch it, that's fine too. But yeah, I figure why not. Okay, all right, you guys. So yeah, so as I was saying, you guys, I'm gonna give a basic tutorial. If xQc wants to watch the stream, he can. If not, it's fine as well, obviously. But I'm basically gonna give you guys show you guys what I recommend that he does. This way, at least when he's back tomorrow, you guys can of course tell him about the video. I mean, if he wants to watch or not. But yeah, that's TOS. You can't show someone that's banned. Sorry, chat. I already checked. It's not TOS. So yeah. Okay, so let's go. The only thing you can do if someone is banned, you can't put their voice. They can't be on, like they can't be on your channel, or they basically you can't have their voice. That's all. All right. Okay, so let's start out. So as we saw, you guys, e4 e5 was played in his game against Moist Critical Charlie, and Felix likes to play knight f3, knight c6, d4, playing the Scotch opening. I think this is a good opening choice by him. I like the idea. It opens up the position quite a bit. So black normally will take the pawn. You take with the knight here, and now black has many options. He can move the bishop. He can bring the knight. Those are probably the two main options, I would say. Who is Felix? That is xQc. Is he playing white or black? I don't know, but I think in the bracket, once he's in the constellation bracket, I think he's gonna get white. He might get black, but it's just I'm gonna do a little bit of stuff. Basically just what he can do. The picture moved. Yeah, the picture moved. Yeah, good one, you guys. So yeah, all right. Okay, so knight takes d4. Now here, Moist Critical played bishop c5 in the game, and Felix played c3. What he should have played was bishop to e3 here to protect the knight like this, bring the bishop, develop it to the center of the board. But the picture moved. Yeah, the picture moved. You guys are trolling. You're making me look right over at my OBS because it's like for a second you're like making me look over and get scared. So yeah, so queen f6 here. C3 is played by white. Again, black is trying to develop the pieces to attack this knight. You've got 1, 2, 3 hitting the knight. And here white has a bishop and a knight and a queen guarding. But again, you need to support it. The main reason to play this is because it supports the knight. And more importantly, in the game with Moist Critical, he played this move, which is also okay. But the main reason is you bring the bishop here because if black were to move a knight, for example, you can play knight takes knight. Hitting the queen on d8, black takes back. Now you take the bishop. Let's say black pushes pawn. You drop the bishop back. You're up one bishop. And now it's just a very smooth transition. You move the knight, move the bishop, and castle the king. For example, let's say black castles. Knight to c3. Bishop here. You go bishop to e2. And then you just castle the king next move. So in this case, it's completely fine. White has one extra bishop. You develop your pieces, and you're winning the game. So for that reason, that's why you bring the bishop out first, with the idea of basically making a fossil here. If black moves the knight, you just take this knight, attack the queen, and then win the bishop next move. So here black usually goes queen f6. Again, now if you take the knight, black can capture this bishop. So what you do here is you play c3, solidify your knight in the center of the board with the bishop and the pawn. Black usually needs to develop here, so you'll go knight to e7. And now what I would recommend that Felix plays here is play something like g3. And now if black castles the king, you go bishop to g2. Again, you control the center square. You're going to castle your king. So for example, let's say black moves back, castle the king, pawn to d6. And now white can play something like f4, for example. And white's doing very well in the position. I know the evaluation is a little bit different, but again, I'm playing on basics, not so much on specific set moves. Basically, you get the king out of the center, you develop the bishop on the diagonal, and you push the pawn, and white is doing very well here. Very straightforward ideas here. You can bring the knight out to support the knight, but you want to keep everything in the center here, and then eventually finish the development by bringing the queen and bringing the rooks to the center of the board, and it's very, very good for white. So, all right, let's go back. So at this point, after knight e7 g3, black can also play pawn to d5 here, which is a very aggressive move. And now you go bishop g2, pawn takes pawn, and now the critical move here that white plays is knight to d2. Yeah, I get it, you guys. I already 46 minutes late. Yeah. And so now the point is that you're threatening to capture with this pawn with the knight and hit this juicer and that juicer. And if black takes the knight here, you can play. I think pawn takes bishop is best. Let's say black takes the pawn. Now you take this one, and it's a fossil again. You hit the queen, but you also are going to win this this knight on d4 as well because you have 1-2 attacking it, and you remove this knight in front, so you get the full power, and you're going to win a knight. So this is if black plays d5 here. Again, if black doesn't play d5 and castles, very smooth. Just castle your king, look to push the pawn, and eventually develop this knight and bring the queen and the rooks right to the center of the board. So let's go back. So if we go back here to this position, black pretty much has to play this. I think if black moves the bishop, you can do the same plan. Just pawn here, knight here, bishop here. Control the push, and then castle the king. And you're doing very, very well here. How many moves of theory do you know in the Scotch? I know a lot of moves in the Scotch. It was the opening that I played a lot when I was very young. I will always have a deep affinity for the opening because I played it from the time I was basically 2000 ranking until I became Grandmaster. So I do love it. Go slower. Felix won't be able to take all this in. I figure if I go, it's not an issue if I go fast or not because basically you can watch the VOD back, or he can watch the video. It'll be up on YouTube as well, I think. So so yeah, never push the F pawn. Once you get the king out of the center of the board, you can always push the F pawn. So okay, so let's go back. So this is if black brings the bishop out. The way you play again is you defend with the bishop and then you push the pawn if black forces the extra reinforcement on the knight in the center. And it's worth noting also, once you put the bishop on e3, there are never any of these cheesy attacks on f2. Black never gets these mating ideas. xQc cam is lagging and muted. Good one, Slim. Hey, good one. So yeah, so basically this is what I would recommend against bishop c5. You develop the bishop support so that you can create the fossil if black isn't careful. When black tries to create the extra attacks, you support the knight, you keep this knight right here on the central square, and then you push the pawn, fianchetto your bishop, and castle your king out of the center of the board, and it's quite good for white. So let's go back. So this is if black moves the bishop here, which is not a very common idea. Normally what black will play here is we'll play knight to f6, attacking this pawn at e4. And against this variation, what I would recommend is that white plays, I think what I would recommend is more at a more simplistic level, is knight takes knight, black takes back with the pawn, and you move the bishop here, get it on a central square, targeting this pawn down the diagonal, and you also support the pawn, so black doesn't win the free pawn on e4. So after d5, you take the pawn, and now you castle the king. It's fianchetto. Yeah, it's fianchetto. I mean, we're speaking American here, not Italian. So it's fianchetto. Okay. Fianchetto. Cheeto, yes. Fianchetto. Exactly. Fianchetto. Yes, totally. Okay, so castle the king. Normally what black will play here is move the bishop out to like d6. And now you can play very straightforward chess. You can play rook to e1, hitting the king. If black blocks with the bishop, now you throw in this in-between check move on the king. Black has to move the king, and now you can start to finish your development. You can either move the knight. You can even maybe move the bishop here, but probably simplest is here, and then you develop the bishop or put the knight in the center of the square, center of the board from which it can attack the knight. No, chat, there, you guys, there's no TOS. It's only if you have them on your stream or there's audio. That's TOS. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident in what I heard. So knight takes pawn here. So knight f6. So you take, you move the bishop. Now, if black doesn't push the pawn, black can also push the pawn forward one square. And now what you would do is you castle the king. Black tries to develop, and it's very, very straightforward here. You go knight to d2, king castles. Now you go pawn to f4. Idea is to bring the knight out, and again, at some point, push the pawn and open up this line for the bishop down towards the black king. And another very aggressive idea you can play here. Let's just say black goes rook here. is you can even be very aggressive, maybe push this pawn here and going bishop b2, and you're lining up both of these snipers on the 2 diagonals down towards the black king. And it's very, very sharp. You can also just be very classical here and go like knight to f3 with rook to e1, and then maybe a b3, bishop b2. But again, you get a big center, you get the knights here, and you're looking to attack in the middle of the board. So yeah, so let's go back. Okay, so after bishop d3, if black plays this, you take castles, and black is smart. He doesn't allow this rook check. He puts the bishop in front of the king. Again, very same kind of ideas. You go rook e1, king castles, and now you go knight to d2. Same idea, knight f3, and then you put this bishop on either g5 or f4, targeting down towards the black queen and the black pawn. And this is very straightforward and very logical, I would say. So this is what I would recommend. xQc looks like he understands. Yeah. Why am I going so fast? I'm going fast because you can watch it back later. That's why. And I want to get as much information as I can into this. So if Felix goes back and watches the VOD when he's off stream, he'll be able to pause it and so forth. But I want to get as much information out there so that he doesn't get cheesed in any of the future games. It'll also be on YouTube, you guys. I'll also put it on YouTube. So yeah, let's go back. So again, very simple ideas. If black tries to bring the knight out, you trade the knights, develop this, you finish up this development on one side of the board, and then down the road, you're looking to bring this knight to f3 and put the bishop here, or you're looking to go here and bring the bishop on this diagonal. Both diagonals work, and white is doing quite well. In terms of why are subs VOD only, subs are VOD only now because of DMCA, and they will be for the near foreseeable future for obvious reasons. I know I said I was going to unlock them at 250 on YouTube, 250,000 subs on YouTube, but with DMCA going on, I'm going to be keeping my VODs behind the paywall for the near foreseeable future, unfortunately. So yeah. All right. So what other systems can his opponents, because obviously some of the people might look at this video as well in advance of their match. There aren't really many other systems. I guess if black tries to bring out the bishop with a check here, you go pawn push, remove the bishop, and now again you always bring the bishop to the center here, and same idea is push the pawn, fianchetto the bishop, and castle your king out of the center of the board. I guess black can theoretically play something like I guess knight takes knight, and maybe no, I mean no one's going to play this at this level, so that's way too dank. And let's say black pushes the pawn to g6 here. In this situation, what you would do is you would just take the knight. Actually, no, let me think of a better setup. Actually, no, here I'd probably just recommend something very straightforward. Knight here, bishop g7, and just bring the bishop, support the knight again with the bishop, and look to move your queen, castle, and go for attacks. For example, something like this. Castles. And now something like knight takes, pawn takes, and just go h4, h5, bishop h6. Use the queen. Use everything angling right down towards the black king on g8. So I don't think anyone will play like this. This is extremely dank. It's a very advanced idea. So let's see. What else could people try to do against him? I guess theoretically someone could try to bring the queen out as well to h4 to attack this pawn on e4. And at this point, what I think white should do is play knight here. Black brings the bishop to angle towards the knight and also threaten to win this pawn, because without the knight, the pawn is under attack. And now what you do is you just go bishop to e2. You don't worry about this one pawn, because after queen takes, you go knight here, and you attack this pawn, and black's king is very open. So black has to do something like king to d8, and now after you castle the king, black takes, you just take back with the knight, and white is much better. The king is in the middle of the board. You bring the rook to the open line, and you can bring this bishop out very, very shortly to attack the king, and white is doing really, really well here. So this is quite good for white. White is much better because even though you've given up the one pawn, black is 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 4 pieces that are stuck on the back rank and can't move into the game. So yeah, that's this is more or less, I think, in terms of Scotch opening, what I can think of. If black moves the queen here, this is another line to try and be a cheese. And after knight c6, black can go here to try to create this stupid checkmate. So what you do is instead of that, again, you go bishop here. Black goes bishop here, and you push the pawn, and we reach the same position as before, with the idea of pushing the pawn and fianchettoing the bishop onto g2, and white is doing very, very well here. So I think more or less that's probably what I would recommend in terms of Scotch opening with the white pieces. And I think most people in the brackets do play e4, e5. Now let me see, in the bracket, I think xQc is going to be facing Fuseli. So bad pronunciation for fianchetto is fianchetto. Don't tell me otherwise, you guys. Don't tell me otherwise. So he's playing against Fuseli, so I'm not going to give him a set setup, but what I will say against, since I have coached her, is I think she'll probably play the Caro-Kann. So what I'm going to recommend that xQc plays against this, if he has the white pieces, is pawn here, pawn d5. You capture the pawn, and now you go bishop to d3, putting the bishop again behind the pawn, creating sort of a semi-hat. And now black usually will play something like knight c6. You go c3 to support the pawn. And after a move like knight f6, you now go bishop to f4. So you take this line, and now you kind of have like a bit of a wooden shield going on here. And the idea is, again, very simple, very free-flowing. If black pushes the pawn, you go knight here. Let's say black moves the bishop here. You castle, and you go rook to e1. Idea of knight d2, queen c2, and eventually a knight to e5, lining up right towards the black pawn on h7. And if black does something like this, you trade the bishops, and you do the same thing. Castles, you go rook here. Idea to go knight here, bring the knight up. And again, you're going to be looking for ideas towards the black king here on this g8 square, basically. So I think this is a very basic setup that I would recommend for Felix if he gets the white pieces against Fuseli. I don't know what the colors are going to be, so this would be what I recommend in terms of playing with the white pieces. Let's take a look at the black pieces now, since Felix will have black for a little bit, or he may have black in the first game. So against e4, I like that he's playing e5. Whoa, thank you to FM Jose Herrera with the host with 508 people. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. That's awesome. Hola, ¿cómo está? Okay, so e4, e5. I don't know, is that Spanish or Cuban? I don't know which. Because that looks like a Cuban name more than a Spanish name. But anyway, big shout out. Thank you so much for the raid. Muchas gracias, señor. Okay, so e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6 here. And basically, most of his opponents have been moving the bishops out to c4 or b5. Let's say white goes bishop c4. Now, Felix, one thing that I'll just call him Felix. Let's be appropriate and proper here. One thing that he's been doing a little bit inaccurately is he's been bringing the bishop out very frequently in front of this queen pawn. And the problem with doing this is that basically the bishop can't ever develop on this long diagonal, and you really want that. So what you do here is you go bishop c5. I'm talking about the name, chat. Chill out. I mean, come on, seriously. So bishop to c5 here. So that now what you can do is you can push the pawn and support your pawns in a row. And your bishop is targeting the king, but also your other bishop is coming down to this diagonal, and it's doing very, very well. I'm not going to speak Spanish. I mean, we're only speaking American here, at least right now. So, okay, so bishop c5. Now, here white can also play pawn to d3 first. And now if white plays d3, he wants to play this tricky cheese idea with knight to g5. So the way you prevent this is you don't develop your pawn. You immediately bring the knight out. And now if white goes knight g5 to hit the pawn with the knight and the bishop, you just castle your king. And if white takes, you just give up your rook. And it's an even trade. You get a knight and a bishop for one rook and one pawn. And you follow it up with pawn push. And your bishop comes out to g4 to hit the queen. And you're doing very, very well here. So let's go back. So after bishop c4, bishop c5, if white castles again, you push the pawn, create the support for the point on e5. And when white pushes the pawn, just bring the knight, castle the king, and bring the bishop out to pin the queen and the knight. And I think Felix remembers he had the game against Yasuo where he got this deadly pin with the bishop on the knight and the queen. And the idea to overload just to give some moves. So if you get a position like this, let's just say something like this. What you do is you bring the knight forward to overload the knight. If knight takes, you win the queen. If white doesn't do that, let's say white moves the bishop, then you can very simply take the knight. He ends up with stacked pawns, and you go bishop to h3, attacking the rook. And the way you follow up is if rook e1, you move this knight, the idea to bring the queen out and try to create the lobster pincer checkmate down towards the white king here on g1. And so that's what I think leads to the checkmate. So that's why I think this is a very, very good setup, and I like it a lot for I like it a lot for for black here. Okay, so this is a lesson that is being recorded for xQc. Yes, as we say here, xQcl. Is this really xQc? Again, he doesn't have to watch us, you guys, but I want to give him something so that he has the opportunity. As I've said before, I feel like someone like Felix, he's probably throughout his life, much of what he learns is like it's on the fly. It's just, learn it yourself, play over and over and over again, and just do it on your own. So I totally get it. I understand a lot of people are like that, but I am doing this in case he does watch the video or not. Why don't I just sub in for Felix? Yeah, but he won't watch this. You never know. He may or may not, but I'm doing it anyway. Because why not? After all he's done for the chess community, I figure it's the least I can do. And if he watches it, that's great. If he doesn't watch it, that's fine too. But yeah, I figure why not? All right, so let's go back. And the other thing is I can go fast here because if you're watching it in a VOD or on YouTube, you can just pause and you can play and pause it over and over again. So yeah, that's the reason for this. All right, so and it will be on YouTube, you guys. I'll put it on YouTube as well. So okay, so now let's say again to just give you guys the rundown. Let's say here, bishop out. Again, you mirror the bishop so that you can always push this pawn and bring your own bishop out into the game. There's a freaking fly in my room. Am I gonna watch the PogChamps match? I may or may not later on, but for right now, I'm just giving Felix some basic opening ideas. I'm losing my sanity. I'm not losing my sanity, you guys. I still have my sanity. So yeah. If white moves the bishop here, I do like what Felix did, push the pawn. Bishop to a4. If white takes the knight, you just take back. And if white captures his pawn, you go here and you attack the knight and the pawn at the same time, and you're doing well. And if white, say, castles the king here, you can again bring the juicer out, and you create this pin on the knight and the queen here. And the idea is to move the knight, move the bishop, castle the king out of the center of the board, and you're doing quite well. If white goes bishop to a4 here, what I'm going to recommend that Felix does, just to keep it really straightforward, is move this knight out here, attack this pawn. If white pushes the pawn, you push this pawn, bishop back, and you just go bishop to c5 here. And if white castles, actually no, let's say just bishop e7. Let's keep it very simple. White castles, you castle the king, and next move again, same idea. Push the pawn and bring the bishop out to g4 to pin the queen and the knight. If white tries to stop that, for example, something like pawn here, and then pawn here to prevent this idea, black can then go knight here, try to get rid of this annoying bishop on the diagonal, bishop to c2, and now you go pawn to c5. Idea to bring the queen here and just bring the bishop and eventually develop the rooks and push to open up the central point on e4 and d5 here. And if we go back, what else can white do? And if white plays knight c3, the one other thing that I remember hearing Felix was talking about, will I put on YouTube the one with chocolate bars? I may or may not. I'm not sure. Probably I will at some point. But anyway, yeah. So I think all the lessons that I've done for the most part have gone on YouTube. So okay, so if knight c3, his hair is moving. Yes, his hair is moving. Right. So if white plays the four knights here, what I want to see Felix do is again play in a similar style. Bring the knight out, bring both knights. If white moves the bishop here, again trying to create the double attack, you go bishop c5. If white castles, you just castle the king, pawn push, and now you push the pawn. Idea to bring out the bishop again, and it's completely fine for black. And if white tries to push this pawn, captures, you go bishop to b4 here, pinning the king and the knight again. Let's say white takes the knight, you take back. He's got to support this pawn somehow, so if he moves the bishop, you can just castle. white castles, and now you go rook to e8. Idea to remove the defender and the knight and then win this juicer for free. So white will probably defend with the rook, and now what you do is you can just push this pawn to d6. Idea again, maybe bring the bishop, maybe bring the knight, but all your stuff is aiming down towards the white king here. So that's what I think makes the most sense. And if white brings the knight to g5, as I said before, you guys, bishop c4, bishop c5, knight g5, you just castle the king. If white takes and plays this, it's a knight and a bishop for a rook and a pawn. And as you guys can see from the evaluation, this is very, very bad for white. So white's losing because same ideas, d6, knight g4, or bishop g4, but everything is angling down towards this white king and this white rook here, and it's really, really good. So this is what I recommend. And in terms of if his opponent, no, he's playing Fuseli, so she will actually probably play d4 here. What I'm going to recommend is that xQc plays something a little bit different. I want him to play which setup? Let's think. Which setup makes the most sense here? What's the best setup? Something that makes sense. Okay, so what I'm going to recommend that xQc plays is pawn push. If white brings the bishop out, that he plays a mirror setup. He goes bishop to f5. If white plays pawn here, you go pawn to e6. And on bishop d3, you drop the bishop back to g6 here. Why is he not moving? Why is he not moving? Yeah, good one. And basically, if white trades, you can take, and now you open up this rook down towards the white rook and the pawn. And if white doesn't do that, he brings the knight. You also try to match the bishop up. And now when white drops back, you bring your knight to f6. Both sides castle, and when white goes knight to d2, the move you're going to play here is pawn push. The idea is to bring the knight to this square and bring your queen to the center, and maybe try long term to get enough forces where you can push the pawn. So you'll need 1, 2, and you'll need 3 in order to force this push. But because black has more pawns in the center, black is doing very, very well here. So I don't want to go too deep in this because I do think he's probably going to watch the video, and I think it would also be slightly unfair to give too much of a breakdown since I have coached Fuseli, and the goal is that everyone has fun, is not to pick favorites or choose one side over the other. So I think this is a pretty good setup. I think in general I like all these ideas for black. So yeah, I think this is pretty good for now, and I hope that I do hope that Felix watches the video, whether it's the VOD or whether it's on YouTube. I hope he enjoys it and he does take away something from this. So I'm trying to keep it pretty light, nothing too insane, and just hope he enjoys it. And again, much love. So, all right, you guys, I think that pretty much covers the xQc repertoire that I'm going to do for now. If he wants an actual lesson, I am of course down to do that, obviously, in the next couple of days.